Hi again, Year 5, on to Chapter 9, Dinah's Secret. Dinah had not quite expected them to be nice to her. It had cost her quite a lot to push that door open, but at the sight of Harvey sobbing among the cushions, she was sure she'd done the right thing. Please may I see the sums? No, you may not, Lloyd snapped. You only want to gloat, don't you? You're just mean, horrible. Harvey raised a tear-stained face from the cushions. Oh, let her, he said wearily. What difference can it make? I don't think she's horrible enough to gloat, even if you do. There you are, Di. These are the beastly sums on the floor. Dinah bent down and picked up the pieces of paper. Her cheeks had turned red and her heart was thudding uncomfortably. Be quiet, a voice in her head was saying. Don't be too clever. Don't give yourself away. She looked at Harvey and then at Lloyd's wretched, worried face and then at the sums. Aren't they impossible? Lloyd said. Dinah took a deep breath. There's no way either of you two could do them. Ha ha, Lloyd sneered. And I suppose you could, clever clogs. Yes, Dinah said slowly. Yes, I can. Lloyd stared at her. It's all right, Harvey, said Dinah. I can do your sums. There was total silence. Harvey's mouth fell open and Lloyd went on staring. I can do them, Dinah said again. Harvey sat up, blinking at them. His hair flopped over his eyes and his cheeks were red. Honest? Honest, said Dinah reluctantly. Give me a pen and some paper and I'll do them now. She felt their eyes watching her as she sat down at the table and read the first sum. You need to use probability theory for that one, she said briskly. Her eye travelled on down the page, and spherical geometry for that one, and this one, whew, she whistled. You'd need tensor calculus for that. He really didn't mean for you to do them, did he? But you can do them, Harvey said anxiously. I told you. Her pen started to move across the paper, and behind her she heard Lloyd gasp in disbelief. Taking no notice, she plunged into the sums, completely absorbed. One or two of the problems were so difficult that she had to think hard, and began to hum softly, enjoying herself. By the time she'd finished, the two boys were staring at her with awed curiosity. How on earth did you do those? Lloyd said awkwardly. Dinah sat back in her chair. I'm clever. Lloyd's mouth twitched as if he was going to jeer, and she laughed suddenly. No, I'm not boasting. I'm really clever at sums and all sorts of things like that. Nobody told us, Lloyd said sulkily. Nobody knows, Dinah pulled a face. Can you imagine how other children would treat me? They'd be mean. I found that out when I was about 5, so I decided to play stupid. I just kept quiet and went on finding out things by myself at the library and so on, and no one's ever guessed. Nobody's known about me. Until now. Lloyd still looked dubious, but Harvey gave a sudden crow of delight. So you've done the horrible old sums? Whoopee! He jumped to his feet and did a little jig. I'm starving. Just think you are, Lloyd said gruffly, after all that stupid fuss you made. Here, have this. He pulled a Mars bar out of his pocket and tossed it over. Tearing off the paper, Harvey began to cram it into his mouth greedily, but Lloyd was still staring at Dinah. You didn't want anyone to know you were clever, he said slowly. You've hidden it all these years, but you've told us now. Why? Dinah looked down at her fingers, feeling embarrassed. I couldn't let Harvey... Well, I was sorry for him. But we've been foul to you. She grinned wryly. You've been foul to me. Harvey's been quite nice. Lloyd frowned. But it doesn't make any sense. You've just got Harvey out of trouble, but it was you that got him into it. It must have been you that told about him going into school early and spying on the assembly. Nobody else knew. Dinah shook her head. It wasn't me that told. Anyway, Rose saw him going in for the registers. She was watching through the window. Perhaps someone saw him outside the hall as well. But you lied about the snowballs, and you keep saying how marvellous the school is and telling about the films you see in assembly. And it's all lies. You know it is. I can't understand you at all. Dinah put her face in her hands. It's worse than that, she said slowly. Then she paused for a moment. Somehow talking about it made it seem realer, more frightening. But if she didn't talk about it now, she never would. She forced herself to go on. I don't understand me. All those things you've described, they come out mechanically before I've decided what I'm going to say. And when I say how marvellous the school is, I know what I really think. I just can't say it. But that's ridiculous. Lloyd began to march up and down the room. Why should you say things you don't want to? Harvey had finished eating the Mars bar and was watching them both with quiet interest. All of a sudden he said, Assembly. What? Lloyd stopped pacing and looked at him. What do you mean? Harvey wiped his chocolate-covered fingers on the arm of the chair. It must be something to do with assembly. It's the only place Dinah goes where neither of us does. What happened in assembly today, Di? In assembly this afternoon, Dinah chanted, we saw a film about coal mines and... She clapped a hand over her mouth with a visible effort to stop speaking. That's right, Harvey said. You didn't. I felt so rotten this afternoon I hardly did any work, just looked out the window and the lights never went out. Dinah looked distressed. Don't you see, she said urgently, it's the same thing again. I've said that something happened. A long explanation that came reeling out before I could think about it. And you say it's not true, just like you said about the snowball fight. And we're right, insisted Lloyd. Slowly Dinah nodded. I think you might be. But why should I say these things? And if we don't see the films in assembly, what happens? Her eyes were big and worried. You must remember, Di, Harvey said. If you were there, you must remember it somehow with some part of your brain. Go on, remember it, remember it. Say that again, Dinah muttered in an odd voice. Harvey was puzzled. I just said, go on, remember it, remember it. Go on, Dinah said. Don't stop, it's coming. Remember it, remember it, remember it, chanted Harvey. Dinah's forehead creased as if she were making a mammoth effort. Remember it, remember it, remember it. As if she were in a daze, she started to mumble and stutter. Hip, hip, hypno. Then her face flooded with joyful excitement. Hypnotism, she yelled, banging her fist down on the table. That's it, hypnotism. Lloyd looked at her doubtfully. That's it, she said again, her eyes glowing. The first day when I went into assembly, I didn't look at the headmaster's eyes when the others did. I closed mine and I heard him hypnotise everyone else. But then he caught me and I just had time to think, remember it, and then I was hypnotised and I forgot. Until Harvey brought it back. The headmaster hypnotises everyone in assembly. She stared round triumphantly at them. But why? Harvey said dubiously. What's the point? Dinah shrugged. Good way to keep everyone in order, and you know how he likes order. While they're hypnotised, he tells them what to do when they wake up, and they can't help doing it. Like me saying those things, and I think, she paused, considering, I think he probably makes us learn things parrot fashion while we're hypnotised. Then, when we're awake, we can remember them and write them down. A quick way to produce a school full of geniuses, Lloyd said sourly, but Dinah shook her head. We're not learning to think. We're just learning to repeat things like robots. It looks good, but it's no use at all. Harvey shuddered. It's horrible. Well, it's all right for you, Dinah said. He doesn't do it to you. I wonder why not. He can't, Harvey said. We're invulnerable. He was only joking, but Dinah looked serious. I think you might be right. Some people can't be hypnotised. Has he ever tried it with you, gazed into your eyes and told you you were tired? Yes, Lloyd said slowly. He did once when I first came to the school. He took off his glasses and stared at me and said, Lloyd, you are very tired. You are very, very sleepy. And then what happened? Well, nothing much. I just said, no, sir, I'm fine, thank you. So did I, put in Harvey. He did it to me too. I just thought he was being a bit silly. Oh, no, Dinah said slowly. I don't think he's silly at all. He's cruel and he's terrifying and he's got an obsession with tidiness. But he's not silly. He's very, very clever. He's got a whole school full of children who will do precisely what he wants. He must feel very powerful. Her voice was awed. Very powerful, she said again. If I were him, I don't think I'd be satisfied with having one measly school in my power. What do you mean? Harvey said. She looked round at them. Think of it. He's got a whole army of people like me, who'll do and say exactly what he wants. Why would he stop there? Sooner or later, he's going to want to do something with his army. There was a long, tense pause. Then Harvey said, Elle, don't you think we should bring the others in on this? Lloyd looked carefully at Dinah. Think she can be trusted? Of course, Harvey said impatiently. Look what she's just done for me. He flapped the paper with the sums on it. We'll swear it a secrecy tomorrow after school.